look at all of the hot topics in HR.
Whether it's passive talent or it's active talent.
That's a soft skill that really gets undersold in the hiring process.
How to manage in the virtual environment.
You get a diverse, cultured group of people, it's a win-win for everybody.
More conversion from candidate lead.
What does that look like in this new virtual world?
Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday, noon Eastern time. You know what that means. It is time for Talent Experience Live. I'm your host, Devin Foster, and this is obviously your weekly look at the hot topics in HR, interviews with leaders in the industry, as well as hot new HR tech, covering everything that you need to know in recruitment, talent acquisition, as well as talent management. It is tradition around these parts to hear where everyone is joining us from. To steal a little anecdote from a colleague and friend of mine, Tom Tate, he likes to say that he is an employee of the internet, and hosting the show, I consider myself an employee of the internet as well. And it's awesome to see how people from all different parts of the world can connect and really share insight and information with one another instantaneously. So if you're joining us now, feel free to sound off where you are from. Hi, Bob. Welcome to the chat. I see additionally, it looks like Shane is joining us from Vermont, as well as Jeff from Tahoe. Welcome. And as always, if you are unable to catch the full episode of Talent Experience Live, you can always catch the replay on YouTube, as well as the blog recap that we post on phenom.com/blog. We do that really well. Full episode up top, as well as some snippets down below. And if you're not much of a video watcher, you can always read about it as well. Jonathan Dale joins us, says watching from the US. Welcome, Jonathan. Valerie says hailing from her desk in Conshohocken, PA. Welcome, Valerie. Today we have a super awesome topic to chat about. It's called Connecting with Care, How Employers Can Better Support Working Parents. I think this past year has been challenging for everyone, no matter what situation you are in, but it has certainly been challenging for working parents. And with employee expectations increasing around the level of support and flexibility offered by organizations, it's time for companies to spearhead meaningful solutions for more accommodating workplaces. So if you have any stories that you'd like to share in the chat, any great things the organizations have done, you can always do that. But before we jump into this exciting topic, I wanted to talk a little bit about Phenom's tradition like no other, the State of Candidate Experience benchmarks report that actually just came out this morning. This obviously is a report where we analyze the candidate experiences of the Fortune 500 in 3 key areas. Those areas would be attraction, engagement, and conversion. I could talk about it more and more, but we do have a quick promo clip that I would love to air before we jump into the topic at hand today. So let's air the clip. Shout out to the video team at Phenom for putting together that great little piece of content. Definitely download the report. I am, of course, talking to you, Justin and Shane. Thank you for helping put on the show, as well as continuing to produce awesome videos. But I think that's a great segue into today's icebreaker question, which I always love to start off with the audience, which is, what is the toughest part about the interview process? Obviously, the application process is something that this State of Candidate Experience benchmark report talks about, but the interview process is something that is equally as challenging, and we're going to discuss a little bit about that with our guest today. For me, it's always been finding time in my day to set up an interview, whether I am currently at a role or have other things going on in my life that I have to balance. I know that was a challenge when I was in the restaurant industry as well as in later parts of my career. But for others, it's oftentimes finding childcare, and this is super relative because of the initiative that our guest's organization is currently putting on. So without any further hesitation, please join me in welcoming Derek Murphy Johnson, Senior Manager of Talent Acquisition at KinderCare Education. Derek, how are you?
Good morning. Hey, Devin, how are you doing?
I am doing all right. Friend of the show now. This is your second time joining us on TXL. How have things been?
It's awesome. It's springtime in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a creature of nature. So this is the time where I'm out in the woods, hiking, getting dirty in my garden, planting. So favorite time of the year for me.
I love that. It is nice to get out and enjoy the fresh air, especially being cooped up inside all winter. So happy to hear that you are making the best of it. Derek, I teased a little bit with that icebreaker question about what KinderCare has done this April as far as an initiative to help support working parents. So before we jump into some more questions, what exactly have you launched, and how is KinderCare really helping these working parents?
So at KinderCare across the country, we decided for the month of April to help people get back to work. We are going to offer free childcare for them if they're interviewing, or if they simply need some time to focus on creating a cover letter or a resume, giving them that time to go into any KinderCare in the 40 states that we operate. Bring your kids in for a free day, so that way you can either find work, or again, like I said, just that focus time to network, work on your resume or your cover letter.
That's awesome. Now, Derek, this isn't specifically to KinderCare employees only, right? It's for everyone to potentially take advantage of.
Absolutely. If you're interviewing with KinderCare or somebody that's not affiliated with our organization, we really want to help America get back to work. KinderCare's mission has always been providing high quality childcare to hardworking families. And this is our way to help individuals get back to work. And really, this is the second time we've done this type of initiative. Last November, it was a very important election, regardless of your political affiliation. And since they're of COVID and like 50% of the schools were virtual online learning only, we made the decision to offer free childcare, so that way citizens could go and do their duty and vote. And as we were talking about that in a town hall, an employee actually in the comments said, "What if we did this for people looking for work?" And we were like, "That's amazing. That is connected to our mission, what we do, helping working families." So myself and the marketing team, we came together and said, "Let's make this happen." So for the whole month of April, we're offering free childcare for people to get back to work.
That's awesome. I mean, the challenge of finding childcare in general is often a tall task, right? Not to mention if it is only for just a short period of time, right? You may not have that relative that you can lean on or that ability to really step away. So offering that sounds awesome. Now, I know you had mentioned that is specific to right now people that may be applying to KinderCare, but also looking for work elsewhere. Is there anything that you are leveraging right now to really help support the employees of KinderCare who may also be working parents over the past year? Because obviously it has been a challenge for everyone.
Yeah. I think the organization, we have really, we've always been a people first organization. And so we have done things as our corporate office here in Portland, we've gone remote, like a lot of organizations as COVID has impacted. And with that, it's more work-life integration versus work-life balance. And so we know that parents today are kind of acting like executive assistants and saying like, I've got your Zoom class ready, here's your schedule for the day. And so we realized that our employees have other things on their mind in addition to work. So meeting our employees where they are and providing that one size fits one approach. But additionally, we've created walking groups. We've created story time for children, cooking with kids. We've created parent groups for our employees to get together, and if it's to celebrate or just events and have the opportunity to talk to another adult. And this is something that is continuously evolving. We have a whole team that's focused on experience of our employees, and they are an amazing team, and I'm always in awe of some of the initiatives that they come up with.
I love that sentiment of working parents being very similar to executive assistants now. Almost, I picture a kid locked in on a computer screen and be like, don't forget, you have your 12 o'clock lunch. I made you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Feel free to step away from your desk for a moment. Obviously, you mentioned that KinderCare really cares about their employees overall, and I know that you recently won a Gallup Exceptional Workplace Award. How do you think the company was able to differentiate itself and win such an esteemed award? I know you mentioned some of the walking groups and things like that, but is that something that you promote externally? Obviously, it's for the employees, and you don't necessarily want to pound your chest. How do you showcase those sorts of benefits that KinderCare employees get?
Yeah, when we are sending out newsletters to candidates in our system with Phenom platform, we share those anecdotes in our employee testimonials that come to us of, I loved the recipe swap that happened last month and things of that nature. But to your point, Devin, it's for our employees. And so we don't want to go out there with a megaphone and saying, this is what we're offering to make it some sort of a recruiting tool. It's really more for us of helping our employees. The thing that I love about the Gallup Award, this is our 5th time winning the Gallup Award, and we're one of only 4 employers that have been able to do this 5 times in a row. It's not something that corporate communications writes an amazing essay to win the award. This is really based on the employees' feedback of, does my manager care about me? Do I have the opportunity for a learning and development? So this award is specifically for our employees, and we've met our employees this year. Like I said, we've always been a people first organization, but this year we doubled down. And when we saw the racial unrest that was happening earlier this spring, as an organization, we had the obligation to support our employees that were going through this. And so we created a People of Color Caucus, and we made an intentional statement saying we support our employees of color. And recently, with the unnecessary Asian hate that's been going on across the country, we've came out and supporting our Asian and Pacific Islander employees, and again, made that statement public and holding ourselves accountable, as well as supporting our employees. We've also created a lot of free resources for the general public on our KinderCare site around those initiatives of how to talk to your children about race, how to talk to your children about the pandemic, things of that nature of really supporting the employees where they're at.
That's super helpful because so many of us were thrust into really this tsunami of terrible things happening, the racial injustice within the organization or within the country and really globally, as well as the added pandemic where people are kind of locked in with their children, and there's no playbook for that, right? There's no opportunity for somebody to pick up a book. So providing some of the resources that your team has researched is awesome. Now, I know that this year has been a challenge for so many because so many were put out of work, including I'm sure some of the KinderCare employees as well. How were you able to stay in touch with your furloughed or former employees to keep them up to date on staying true to the KinderCare culture? Talking about those initiatives for social injustice, supporting the Asian and Pacific Islanders that you had mentioned, as well as your employees during the height of the pandemic. How are you able to showcase your values?
Simple answer is transparent and authentic communication to our employees. We have an amazing communications team, and when we made the hard decision that we had to close our centers, our communications team were sending out messages to our employees, providing updates, and sometimes there wasn't really an update to share because there was so much ambiguity and uncertainty at the beginning of COVID. And the organization, we closed almost all of our locations except for a few hundred to support those essential workers. And so it was important for us that this wasn't a fault of KinderCare. This wasn't a fault of our employees. And so even though we had to make that hard decision to furlough some of our employees, the majority of our employees actually, we wanted to make sure that they knew that KinderCare was still there and was still behind the scenes supporting them, working with pediatric medical experts and the CDC to create the first safety protocols in the early childcare education space, and sending those messages and updates through along the way. Additionally, as soon as we realized that we were going to be closing, I immediately closed all of our positions and closed everything off of our career site. And I sent a message out to the job seekers saying, be safe. We don't know what this is going to look like. We may be closed for a month. We may be closed for a year. We don't know. In sending those messages to our job seekers of, we haven't forgot about you. We want to make sure that you're okay mentally and physically. We're here. Once everything opens up, KinderCare is here. And just continuing to send out that transparent, authentic communication.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially because there is so many stories of people who were out of work, during the pandemic, and providing that transparency to them to say, hey, we see that you've applied. Right now, we're not hiring. So I don't want you to waste your breath or your energy on something that at this point in time, we're unable to help you. So that's truly awesome. Now, I do want to call out a couple of the comments. Jen says she loves that this promotion and this initiative that KinderCare has. She's going to talk to some of her friends about that offer of the free childcare for the month of April who may be looking for work. So great work there. And Monica chimes in and says that she loves the ideas of community support. It takes a village. For those of you just joining us right now, this is Derek Murphy Johnson, a TA leader at KinderCare. And now that things are beginning to return to somewhat normal, I guess that I would say, and hiring is begin to take place. Obviously, it's not going to go back to 2019. What are you certainly doing now to really initiate your hiring processes? Are you running campaigns? Are you running events? And are there any notable success stories there?
All of the above and then some. So yes, we are running campaigns. So on a regular basis, we're sending out job openings and sharing employee stories with job seekers through email, as well as text messaging. But one of the things that really has been successful for us is putting on hiring events through the Phenom platform. So hiring events that we've been doing across the country. The most recent one we had in Maryland, we had over 130 people register for an event and made a lot of critical hires to support the Maryland market. So the hiring events for us has been a game changer because in one day we can hire 40 to 50 people, where, as you know, in the recruiting process, that takes time of getting all those interviewers lined up, getting the schedules aligned, the candidates aligned, everything. So being able to use the Phenom platform to share information about the hiring event and being able to track the candidates on the back end has been super helpful for us. As we look at getting into spring hiring and then back to school, we're going to continue doing hiring events, continue doing email marketing as well as text messaging, but also social media. I think meeting our job seekers where they're at is important. And so doing the social media outreaches and working with the colleges and also trade schools that provide ECE training to tell the story about KinderCare and why it's a great place to work.
Social media is certainly important. I can't tell you how many times, even when I'm walking out and getting that little bit of fresh air that we talked about at the top of the show, I still see people scrolling through their Instagram feeds and scrolling through their Twitter feeds. So reaching them where they are. And you also mentioned text messages, right? Obviously, if people's lives have been thrown upside down, they're on the move. Email is definitely a little bit more formal, right? People want to, have a hello, goodbye signature, the whole nine. It's very business professional, if you will. I think of it as like the shirt and tie of candidate communication, and really meeting candidates where they are via text message is important. And I think that talks a little bit to meeting their expectations of flexibility as well, understanding that they may not be able to log onto their computer and check their email regularly. Obviously, post-pandemic, I think a lot of expectations for candidates and employees is going to change, and they're looking for those workplaces that are supporting the culture that they want to be a part of, such as some of the initiatives that you mentioned, as well as workplace flexibility. What is KinderCare doing to be as inclusive as it is to be recognized by Gallup, as well as being a flexible workplace for those working parents?
I think I mentioned work-life integration.
Yes.
I think that's key for us. And really, it's listening to our employees. So we have a portal for our employees to give feedback about the remote workplace that we're doing right now. We don't know what the future looks like, to be honest with you. We're deciding what that looks like, but it's not going to come from the top down. So we're talking with our employees, and we want to hear from them. What's worked during the pandemic? Overnight, we had a shift from being in the office together to being remote. And so we have things like virtual water coolers, if you will. And so the individuals that all worked on the same floor, we have get-togethers, we have virtual yoga, we have things like that that will probably continue into the future. But as we've worked in a remote setting, we realized that we don't have to go back to a brick and mortar office permanently full time. Short answer is I don't know what the future is going to look like for KinderCare from a flexible workplace. But one thing is certain is that we're going to continue to listen to our employees and make the right decision that meets them where they're at. And that, again, that one size fits one approach.
I love that virtual water cooler talk that you mentioned. I long for the days where I would go get a cup of coffee or go get some water and talk about what happened in sports last night. That was, I won't tell my boss this, even though he's probably watching. That was some of my favorite parts of the day, right? Where you kind of catch up on what happened in pop culture and sports the night before. So it's awesome that you do that. I might take that up on my own. And you mentioned the hybrid workplace and the potential to not have to go back to that brick and mortar office. But obviously, KinderCare has locations, hundreds of locations across 40 states. And working remote for some of these educational centers isn't really an option. But you did mention how you really set the bar for workplace safety and fostering a healthy environment for both your students as well as your educators there. How were you able to tackle that since there was no playbook going into it?
Yeah, at the on-site, we engaged with pediatric medical experts to help us just start the conversation of how can we protect our kiddos in our centers, as well as our teachers and our families. So we partnered with the medical experts and the CDC to create the guidelines. And it was an agile process, to be honest with you, because at the beginning, we thought the virus was one thing. And then as we got more information in the country, we had to shift and change. So it was really an agile process. And I have to give a big shout out to our center operations team and our health and safety teams. They worked round the clock to making sure that information was updated. Our experience team created an interactive tool to help our teachers with ways to communicate with children and explain what's going on. Because think about little ones and having an adult with a mask over their face, that can be really scary for children. So it was creating training for our teachers on how to communicate with the children and families during this time, and just making sure that we had all of the information out to all of our centers, both digitally as well as printed, and creating a safe environment for our employees. And we also created a health and safety champion at every single location. And so that health and safety champion had to go through X amount of training that our health and safety team created, and have X amount of ongoing involvement in the health and safety updates as COVID shifts and as vaccines become more readily available, of what we're changing and how we're changing our different protocols. So we're lockstep in with our medical experts, and continuously are looking at the revised CDC guidelines just to make sure that everybody in our center is safe.
That's awesome. I think back to early pandemic for me with a mask on, and it was even tough to communicate with people that I knew right outside of the house. And whenever I see a small child, I always like to smile and wave. And now I make sure that I definitely wave, because I don't just want to look like I'm staring at somebody's child with a mask. They can't see my smile, so it comes off a little bit weird. But always wave now. And it's awesome that you're providing that education for your teachers on how to communicate, right, and how to be less intimidating, quite frankly, with a mask on, because that is jarring for grown-ups as well as for children who all they've known is not masks, right, for their entire lives. What are some other best practices that organizations can truly implement for working parents? Is it something as simple as just offering childcare assistance, resources, and programs? Is it encouraging working parents to take time off? And how have you successfully implemented those into your work-life integration that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I would say all of that. It's
Okay.
listening to your employees and really having that patience as an employer, and understanding where your employees are at. We're all scared. We're all stressed. We don't know what's going on. Things are getting better, and as like I said, the vaccines are becoming more readily available. And it's an ongoing process at KinderCare. I like to say we're an agile organization. We use data for everything. And so engaging our employees, finding out what works and what they really like, and taking a look at like participation and seeing, okay, do people like the mixology where they're getting to network with their senior leaders, learn how to make a new cocktail, and just have time just to chat with our employees and people that you haven't seen since the beginning of the pandemic. So I don't think there's a one approach that an employer can take. Definitely resources for childcare are critical. Anybody knows that that has kids, that childcare is expensive. And so whatever the employers can do to help take away that burden from their employees is just going to give that employee the confidence that the employer is there for them through the whatever hurdles that life throws at them. It's something that we did way before the pandemic is our own employees, we give them an incredible discount where employees pay less than $200 a week to bring their children to daycare. And so whatever you can do to relieve the burden and really address your employees where they're at is what you should do. If that's having a listening session or having town halls, our CEO, he has, in addition to town halls, he has What's Up, and he goes through our people pillar, educational pillar, or safety pillars, just to make sure everybody is on the same page and knows what's happening. I think doubling down on communication and being transparent and authentic communication to your employees goes a long way during this time of uncertainty.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. A couple weeks ago, we had a couple members from Gallup on the program, and we talked about employee burnout. And a lot of it was those open lanes of communications with managers and setting realistic expectations. It's a great episode for anyone watching right now, but it's that thought process of the pandemic almost highlighted an issue that organizations were having pre-2019, where some of these expectations were unrealistic, right? Maybe childcare was a challenge for organizations, and they need to recognize that challenge for their employees, rethinking that 9-to-5 workday that is so familiar. And now, as we're entering the next stages of this pandemic, I think offering, learning and development courses on, what does your workplace look like for vaccinated people versus people who may not be able to get vaccinated or haven't gotten vaccinated? What are some of the protocols that you can roll in there? So continuing that throughout is certainly important. And then the last thing that I would like to ask you is, do you have any success stories on this latest initiative? I know you mentioned that you had done something back in November, but here we are midway through the month of April. Any great stories that you've heard where people have been able to find work or potentially bring back their children to KinderCare to get longer term education?
Yeah, we're actually we haven't done a look back at success so far, but I can tell you anecdotally, I have a friend in Chicago that she, like a lot of people, lost her job and unfortunately became a single mother unexpectedly. And so as soon as we announced the free childcare, she took advantage of it. And she's like, I can't tell you just having that day to myself to get dressed up in business clothes, getting mentally prepared to interview was just a weight off of her shoulder that she didn't have to worry about bothering her mom or risk going out into a potentially unsafe public setting with her children, taking them to the parents or family or wherever. So she took advantage of it, and she's like, it just gave me that freedom to make sure that I was 100% focused on showcasing my skills and abilities versus worrying about my child. And so we'll share more information later as we get through the month. But right now, it's just that peace of mind knowing that KinderCare is there for them, and really just the appreciation that we've heard anecdotally from the center level to messages on social media that we receive.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that it is ongoing, and you guys will have some wonderful success stories at the end. But I immediately think to the preparation that sometimes I'll take for just a Zoom meeting, right? It isn't an interview, and the stress that an interview can have on candidates really overwhelms. I drip in sweat. I can tell you, Derek, it looks like I've been swimming in shoulder height water when when I've been on interviews in the past. So that peace of mind to really prepare yourself to get ready, to make sure that you aren't scheduling a lunch for your children or something like that at that time has to be helpful. Derek, this has been spectacular. Any parting shots that you'd like to share? Anything that where people can find more information on potentially sharing this with anyone who may be looking to take advantage of the initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking to take advantage of the free childcare offering, go to KinderCare.com. And we have information on our website about how you can take advantage of the free childcare initiative. And the last thing I would just like to say is keep your mask on. The pandemic is still here. COVID's still here. And so keep your mask on and wash your hands. That's the only thing I ask. I want to go outside and I want to see my friends.
I could not have said that any better. Please keep your mask on. Derek, thank you for joining. Can't wait to hopefully do this again sometime for a new initiative that KinderCare is doing, hopefully not pandemic related, something that is a bit more upbeat. But I wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime soon.
Awesome. Good seeing you again, talking with you, Devin. I love your hat.
Thank you. I love the glasses, by the way. I saw a photo of Jeff Goldblum before I hopped on. I said, it's time to dust off the old fedora hat. So thank you. But we'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right, yeah. There you have it. That was Derek Murphy Johnson, a senior leader for talent acquisition at KinderCare Education. Awesome to have him on talking about how they're supporting working parents right now, and also those who are looking for work by providing that childcare. He mentioned visit kindercare.com. If you know anyone or potentially could find that useful for yourself, if you're on LinkedIn looking for a job right now, definitely take a look at that. I do want to highlight last week's episode, which also talks a little bit about what Derek mentioned, and it was that diversity and inclusion is not a problem to solve, rather an initiative to support. We did that with Chief Strategist at Phenom, Cliff Jerkowicz. He talked about how it's all about, it is all about setting up cultural goals to help with DE&I initiatives. Cliff is always a wealth of knowledge. I love chatting with him. I feel like I learn 100 things. We'll air the clip right now, but definitely check out the full episode on YouTube as well as phenom.com/blog. Here's the clip.
How do you build a culture in an organization that attracts diversity? How do you build a culture in an organization that attracts diversity? Open arms, welcomes it, says, come be a part of who we are, versus promotion. I'm not saying promotion is a bad thing. Saying that you're diverse doesn't make you diverse. Saying that you want to, have X percentage of diversity doesn't make you diverse. It's great to start there. It's sort of admitting that, that there is an inequity in your organization, and we'd like to, create an initiative around it, but it doesn't necessarily get you moving in the right direction. But attraction does. Attraction is something that, you're not self-promoting, and I mean self-promoting at the organizational level, by saying we're diverse or we want this or we have that. It is by the nature of your actions, by the makeup of your organization and the outreach to the communities that you serve, by nature, those things will be broadcast. So it becomes a grapevine, whisper down the lane, a word of mouth. A big piece of attraction is sort of the intelligence or reporting of how are we doing, admitting to the world, where you are doing well and where you are falling short and where you need help in doing that. So that's certainly one area among many. The other one that I think is worth mentioning, because we all know about ERGs, employee resource groups, and they are a great resource, but they are being underutilized. And this is what I heard consistently from 150 plus leaders that I talked to, especially about their ERG programs. Admittedly, many of them say we haven't given them enough responsibility. We haven't embedded them in each area of our business to help them identify where we are falling short or where we're doing well, or doing things like more community outreach and representing the company and the diversity and inclusiveness of a company, outside of its organization. Being able to use ERGs to validate things like your candidate screening processes, even your job descriptions, looking at things for the bias, being able to leverage employee resource groups in different ways. And a lot of it has to do with hands-on, pretty tough work. But in most cases, they're willing to do it. And if you let them, they will make your organization better, hands down. You just have to give them the autonomy to do it.
Last week was an awesome episode with Cliff. We talked about everything from unconscious bias to how AI is not a flip that you can switch in order to solve your problem. And it really takes that ideology of changing your mindset that diversity, inclusion, and equity is not a problem to solve, but rather an initiative to support. Definitely check out the full episode on YouTube, as well as phenom.com/blogs. Before we go, I want to do one last promotion. Got to pay the bills around here for the State of Candidate Experience Benchmark Report, which came out today, where we evaluate the Fortune 500 in 3 key areas: attraction, engagement, and conversion. So Shane, if you're listening on the back end, let's air that clip one more time. Awesome. It's not like me to do promotion twice, but I know candidate experience is Phenom's bread and butter. And like I said, that report came out today, so definitely download it at phenom.com. Special thank you to Derek Murphy Johnson for joining the show today to talk about what KinderCare is doing during the month of April to help support working parents. Also, shout out to Valerie, Monica, Jonathan, Bob, everyone for joining us today. Shane on the back end for keeping me on my toes, as well as him keeping me on my toes. And hopefully we will see you all next week. I know we are going to be chatting about cover letters and the initiative around video, and are they going to become antiquated pieces of the application process. So definitely don't miss that episode next week, Thursday, noon Eastern time, same place, same time. We'll see you there. Everyone else, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And in the words of Derek, don't forget to wear your mask. We're almost out of it. See you soon. Thanks.